Hello, I'm Bernard Norcott-Mahany. I work at the Blueford branch of the Kansas City Public Library. April is National Poetry Month. For April 2022, I'm reading aloud poems by the Roman poet Horace. I'm reading them in a translation by David Ferry. Horace published in 23 BCE. His first three books of Odes, they were published as a unit. You'll see this when we get to the very last poem of Book 3, where he clearly indicates that he means for this collection to be taken as a whole. He later did a fourth book of Odes, but we're not going to concern ourselves with that. This is Horace really at the height of his poetry making in these first three books. Poem number 20 from Book 1, which is what we're going to do today, is a poem to Maecenas. So Maecenas was this wealthy man. He was a patron of the arts. He sponsored Virgil. He sponsored Horace. He sponsored some other poets. He was a good friend of Augustus. And he basically looked out for Horace. Now, Horace was in origin was a simple person. His father had been a slave. He was then freed, so he was the son of a freedman, so he would be from the lower class. But his father felt that education was very important, and that Horace got actually the sort of education that only the wealthy would generally get. So he got a very good education. That turned out to be quite a wise move on his dad's part, because Horace is one of the greatest of the ancient poets, and arguably one of the greatest poets ever. So, good job, Dad. And in this particular poem, Maecenas had been ill. He apparently, he was ill for a while, and his whether he was going to live or die was a concern. He recovered. They actually had a big to-do for him in one of the Roman theaters when he got better. And this poem is Horace's sort of glad to see you back, buddy. Poem. And what he does is he does what he does often. He sets up his own simple way of doing things with the more fancy, right? So he can't give them this big gala at the theater, but what he can do is he's got some nice, simple sort of local wines that he and Maecenas can have at Horace's house. So this is poem 20 from Book 1 to Maecenas. Maecenas, when you come to visit me, you will share with me from ordinary cups the Sabine wine my household has to offer, the local table wine of the neighborhood. I put it up myself in a Grecian jug on the very day, dear friend, when you came back, recovered at last from almost having died, to the Campus Martius and to great applause, that echoed from the banks of your native Tiber and joyfully from the Vatican hills beyond. Maecenas, you have better wines at home than my poor cups have ever known the taste of. You have the Calenian wine, the Caecuban wine, the Falernian, and the wine from the Formian hills. So that's poem 20 from Book 1 of Horace's Odes to Maecenas. So what he's going to do is offer him local Sabine wine, okay, which would be, vin ordinaire, as opposed to these fancy wines that are named at the end that Maecenas would have, because, he's a wealthy guy, so of course he has, a rather prodigious wine cellar. But the point is, what's special about this wine is that he bottled it on the day that Maecenas recovered. So it has a special connection to Maecenas and his recovery.